From then, I decided that I would apply for the position. Then I applied for the position. And once I applied for the position, it gives me this advantage that I can tell in my application, I have talked to
Yeah.
and so is already in the company. Then they can go back to that person and say, hey, what do you think of Louben?
Good afternoon or good morning, wherever you may be tuning in. I'm Jeff Kozlowski. I'm a marketing communications manager here at University of Rochester School of Medicine and Dentistry. We are live again for another career discussion with one of our alumni who we'll bring on in just a second. His name is Louben Dorval. He is a 2021 graduate of our cellular molecular pharmacology PhD program, and he is currently in Boston, Massachusetts, working with Akero Therapeutics as a preclinical scientist. Louben, welcome. How are you?
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Happy to be here and good to see you again.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, just first, I know I did a very short intro there at the top, but would love to just kind of quickly hear a little bit more about who you are, where you're from, how you ended up at University of Rochester, and ultimately Boston.
Yeah, well, I grew up, I was born and raised in Haiti, and shortly after high school, I moved to South Florida, where I did my undergrad studies at Nova Southeastern University. Then after that, I went to University of Rochester for my grad studies. And actually, one of my mentors, while I was doing my undergrad, mentioned that I should look into the program, knowing that what I wanted to study for my PhDs. And he mentioned University of Rochester. And that's how I ended up looking into the program, applying and going to interview and the rest is just history, I guess.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about your role with Akero Therapeutics. What exactly does a preclinical scientist do?
Yes, as a preclinical scientist, one of my main roles is to understand the pharmacology of our leading candidate now. We have a drug EFX, if efruxifermin, that's in clinical trial in phase 2B now for the treatment of NASH and liver fibrosis. And one of the main role is to understand its pharmacology and lead collaborations with different people, whether it's a PI at a university or different CROs, contract research organizations. And the second part of my job is to also help with the development of our pipeline. As a startup, usually, you have one drug, one leading, well, not drug, sometimes one leading compound that you're trying to get to the market. But with one leading compound, it becomes sort of it either works or it doesn't work. So you need to develop a pipeline to have more than just one compound in the at least in clinical trial and hopefully get to the market.
And what sort of drew you to this kind of work? You know, when you went to when you started grad school, was being a
Yeah.
preclinical scientist something that was on your radar, or was it kind of something
Um,
that you thought of, thought more and more about as you went along that journey?
Not at all. In grad school, I went to the pharmacology department at U of R, and I my project actually I worked with FGF21, the fibroblast growth factor 21, and in the context of opioid use disorder. And it just so happened that this company, Akio Therapeutics, is the leading compound is AFX, an analog of FGF21. So it was just a great match for me to transition into. Once I knew about the company, I reached out and talked to people from the company, and I felt like it would be a good match, and I applied for a position. But as a grad student, I didn't really see myself as a preclinical scientist, and I think a lot of times, in grad school, you kind of see or think of a path forward, but I was, I guess, flexible enough to let kind of, the transition happen and moving into that position.
One of the main things, of course, we wanted to chat about during this uh, event today is LinkedIn. I know it was sort of a key in helping you along your journey, Louben. So just first, I know we'll kind of talk about some more specifics, but how important was LinkedIn and that whole idea of networking when it came to your job search?
Yes, this is a perfect timing since you mentioned Eric's name. Yeah, and I'll have to say I haven't updated my LinkedIn in a minute, which is not a good thing. Once I got the job, I didn't really update it since then. But yeah, in grad school, like when I was getting ready to transition and apply for different positions, I went and talked to Eric many, many times, and we came up with a plan to, work on LinkedIn, on find letters of recommendations, and discuss, the different jobs or positions or titles I would be open to. And LinkedIn was really key to kind of moving forward. And I started really working with creating a profile that would kind of in the field that I wanted to go into.
Mm.
And one of the best ways to do that is to look at people in the field that you want to go into, look at their profile, and take pictures if you want to, screenshot, and create your LinkedIn similarly. Because once you have a LinkedIn that's, like there's some expectation on what if I go to your LinkedIn, what I want to see, what I expect to see. And once you create the LinkedIn profile that way, recruiters or people who are hiring managers will quickly take a glance and find what they're looking for and quickly decide if they're looking forward or not. In this digital world, it's easy to, find the information you're looking on someone without even talking to them. And a lot of times you can just reach out to someone in the contact that you know and find the information you're looking for. So LinkedIn was key, and building LinkedIn in a way that people can find the information
Mm.
and you can clearly put out what you want to put out there is very, very important.
And what are some of the, I guess, like if somebody watching is like, wow, okay, I need to update my LinkedIn profile. It sounds important. What is
Yeah.
kind of a few things they should focus on first? Is it, I
Yes.
know obviously when you go to somebody's profile, you see the top, you see their picture, you see there's a
Yeah.
brief summary there of some of the, I guess of kind of everything they do. But so it, in your opinion, and or if anything you worked on specifically with Eric, as far as some of the key pieces of a good solid LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, I think for the most part, it will depend on, what you're doing or what position you're looking into. But generally, there are certain things that we all can kind of agree on. You should have a nice profile picture that says like that's you. You should have maybe a background picture that maybe says something about you or something that necessarily not necessarily something you do always, but something you enjoy or something you like, or something similar to that. And there's um there's a space to personalize what you want to say and about your position your position now. Then it would be important to add, two or three sentences in, or maybe one sentence in this section. So basically, your profile picture, a summary of what you're doing now, and maybe then it's sometimes some people want to see, what you've been doing the past 4 or 5 years. So
Mm-hmm.
a CV or a resume, and it doesn't have to be a complete resume, but just to have an idea of what you've been doing maybe in the past 4 or 5 years. And if you can go even further than that, then that's even better. And if you're in grad school, you know, people will expect to see maybe presentations that you gave or conferences you went to, work you did in lab or outside of lab. Things like that matter a lot. And, as a scientist, for me, I wasn't looking for a job as a preclinical scientist, but I know it was going to be something with the science field. Then at the very top, you would see certain traits that describe me as a scientist, so going to conferences and presentations, whether it's posters or all presentations. And most department will have seminars that showing that you can talk about your science, you can do outreach work. It's, almost as important to be good in the lab and to be also, a good science communicator or speaker.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I know in my own, job search, it wasn't until I started regularly posting to LinkedIn that I started to see more folks reaching out to me or like being willing to connect with me or just comment on my work,
Yes.
and you kind of develop virtual relationships that way that can go a long way. Did you kind of notice, like, before you kind of put a focus on LinkedIn, to when you worked with Eric and you started making some updates, did you kind of see a shift in that kind of stuff too, like maybe more connections or more interest, profile views?
Yes, most definitely. Once I had a LinkedIn that clearly stated, what I wanted to do, what I wanted to focus on. Because during that time I was reaching out to a lot of people just to have a 30 minute, 5, 10, 30 minute call with them, like an interview
Yeah.
to question what they do and learn about, the normal day and what they do and how they got there. And a lot of times people just don't reply. And you don't really lose anything from that. You just keep, sending messages, keep adding people. But once I had a LinkedIn that was very clear, very precise, my response was
Mhm.
definitely way more. Before that, I would probably get 1 out of 5 people would respond back and set like schedule an interview. But after that, everything was clear. It was definitely 3 to 4 people out of 5. So that's very important. And these people, some of them talk to me more than once,
Mm.
and a few of them I consider part of my network now. I follow them very closely, see what they're doing. Every now and then, we will communicate through messages, and that is very important for someone like me who is very new to my field and is just starting to kind of learn it all and grow in the field.
That's interesting. So you were using it to, try to reach out to folks just to do some informational interview type stuff, right? Just to kind of get a
Yes,
feel for the work, the culture, the um, just kind of what it's like working there. And you noticed more responses from requests like that after you kind of clean things up a bit.
exactly. Because a
Yeah.
lot of times, these people will, when you send a message, a lot of times they will look at your profile and then decide to accept or not, and then, respond back to you. And if you have a LinkedIn profile that's very neat and they can clearly see the things you've been doing, the things you want to do, and
Yeah.
they can decide, hey, I could help this person with a 30-minute interview. And it's easier for them to just accept and respond back.
Absolutely. That's
Yeah.
great stuff. Louben, I guess, we're coming up on, well, I know PhD students are kind of always, it's sort of a rolling quote unquote
Yeah.
graduation as they defend their thesis and whatnot. But those that may be coming up on a thesis defense and getting ready to graduate, Is there sort of one piece of advice that you could give them as they enter the job market?
Um, I guess as trivial as this may sound, take it one day at a time. There's a lot you need to do, but it's easier to take one small step and then keep going that way and be consistent. You'll have to write your thesis, write or respond to a viewer's comment on your manuscripts if you recently or have to submit one. You'll have, for the most part, to look for jobs and work on your resume or CV or LinkedIn, and also, trying to schedule a thesis. So it's a lot happening in a very short time.
Yeah.
So it's good to, if you're writing your thesis and you can't come up with the next 5 or 10 sentences, maybe take a 15-minute break and jump to LinkedIn. Like allowing the mind to just, or the brain to just like do something else and then get back to writing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that can also help. And, having interviews, informational interviews with people. Yes, it's important to talk to as many people, but maybe not 4 or 5 in one day. So really trust, you know, just do your best and do a little bit every day instead of, rushing and getting really tired early or midway feeling like you can't keep going. It's tough because you're doing so much in a short period of time, but once you're done with all of it, it's worth it. I guess we all know that. um, and yeah, and reach out if you need help, if you need to talk to a friend or um, that can help with either with the writing part or the like career development. The CPD has people who do a really great job with that, and a lot of times other students can help also. So yeah, I think that's the way I would go.
I love it. It's easy to get overwhelmed, but when you kind of maybe break things down into smaller tasks, it makes
Yeah,
it seem, a little more attainable. Um,
most definitely.
Real quick, Lubin, if you wouldn't mind, I know we talked
Mhm.
about you messaging potential employers about
Yeah,
informational interviews. Can you give me a sense of like what those, I would imagine that those messages should be probably a certain length, right? I know people
yeah,
are, a lot of folks you might be reaching out to might be short on time. And
yes,
so what kind of people were you reaching out to as far as like their job titles and what
yeah,
did those messages look like?
yeah. So I actually I'll give an example with this job. I reached out to the person who was the principal scientist back then. Um, and it was a simple message saying hi and then his name and um, this is why I'm a student at University of Rochester in this department and I'm interested in this field and in this company. I saw that you work for this company. Is it possible to have a short meeting and just like go over a few questions and learn so I can learn a little bit more about the company and what you do. Very simple.
Yeah.
And he responded and we talked. I think we had a 45-minute conversation. And, a lot of times you can tell if the person is really happy with the company,
Mm.
happy with the job, and, excited about the work they do or not. And from then, I decided that I would apply for the position. Then I applied for the position. And once I apply for the position, it gives me this advantage that I can tell in my application, I have talked to
Yeah.
and so is already in the company. Then they can go back to that person and say, hey, what do you think of Louben? So
Yes.
that's always great. And there are a few other people that I reach out. It's always the same format, tell them, hey, I see you work in this field. I'm interested in this and that. This is what I do now. Would you be able to chat with me? Have a quick 30-minute call.
I love that
And
about being able to then say, when you go to apply, oh, I spoke to so and so. That's all, like an almost an automatic, if the conversation went well, an automatic reference in house
exactly,
that you wouldn't have had
yes,
before. Yeah,
yes, you have someone in the company that they can go back to and say, hey, do you know so and so? And that person can say, yeah, I talked to so and so, very interesting person. I think that person could help us. Then
yeah,
you know you have some sort of, I guess, an edge above like other people who just apply blindly. So it's
it's true.
always worth it to reach out. And even if it doesn't work out, you get to learn about, options, because a lot of times as PhD students or scientists, we think we have to be in lab in the next steps, and it's great if you want to be in the lab. It's great if you love being in there, but you can also be here at home working as a preclinical scientist. And we do have an office, as I told you, but we plan when to go to the office just to have an in-person meeting. But for the most part, the science happens here. I guess part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a lot of positions that you probably wouldn't think that are out there, by talking to people, you can learn that, hey, I actually can do this, I actually can do that.
Yes, a different can maybe discover some different ways to use those skills that you've developed in grad school.
Exactly.
Is using like a hashtag keyword in your about section any help? Like hashtag pharmaceuticals, for example. Like, does that matter versus not using a hashtag?
I think it can be helpful, just because LinkedIn now can be used for so many things. And I can just go on LinkedIn now and look for pharmacology.
Mm-hmm.
Then if you have pharmacology hashtag, then that would give it a higher chance of showing up. So maybe normally I wouldn't see your profile, but with that the hashtag, maybe I will see it.
Yeah.
But with everything, you can't go in there and have everything hashtagged.
Right.
So there's a limit. I'm not saying you could do two or three, but there's a limit to how many words or terms, how often or how much you should use the hashtag.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's so much now you can do with LinkedIn, and the more I use it, the more I realize, hey, I wish I knew all this while I was in grad school. So yeah, not a bad idea.
At the time you were defending and looking for jobs via LinkedIn, were you targeting jobs in the Boston market or just looking anywhere?
I had a few places in mind that I was looking for. I think it's also important to know like the field you want to go into.
Mm.
Where are these jobs? And these are things you can just a Google search will help. The things that I was looking into. Boston is a very big hub for that. San Francisco and San Diego are also big in that, and Philadelphia also.
Mm.
There are a few other cities that have a lot of these jobs, but mostly I was looking mostly in San Francisco, Boston, and Philly. And this company actually, the Akiwo, the headquarter is in San Francisco, but um, I decided to move to Boston instead, and they were okay with it, and it's working out.
That's great. Yeah, I guess
Yeah,
Rochester to Boston's a little bit easier than Rochester to
way
San
easier.
Francisco.
Yeah,
If there is a place that people can connect with you, if they want to reach out directly, where is the best place to do that?
yeah. It's easy to connect with me on LinkedIn, and a simple message. I'm okay with that. And you can also reach out to my Akeo email. It's Louben at Akeo, AKEROTX .com. Louben at AkeoTX.com.
All right.
And send a message anytime. And if you are at U of R, and I'm sure Eric can easily connect you to me, and again, all these things I'm saying, I'm sure Eric can help you and show it a lot more. And so don't, if you're at U of I, make sure you go see them at the CPD.
Once again, Louben, I really appreciate you taking the time to join us. It's really great stuff on LinkedIn. I hope our viewers can take something away and go make an update to your profile today, especially if you're getting ready to hop into the job market. But yeah, thanks again, Louben. Really appreciate the time.
Great. Thank you for having me. It was nice discussing this with you. And again, if there's any question, just connect anytime. And I'm ready and I'm available to help however I can.